Welcome back everybody. Well, autumn has sprung this week, so I'm here with my fleece and woolly hat because it's still quite cold and we had a frost last night. We're looking at 2003 Jaguar S-Type R, and we're looking to implement another performance upgrade, this time the 6% or 1.5 psi supercharger pulley, and also look to replace both the auxiliary belt and supercharger belt at the same time. So I'll briefly walk through the steps that I intend to follow today. So the first step will be to remove the supercharger plastic cover pipe here. I'm looking to just loosen this Jubilee clip here, pull it out, and at the same time the mass airflow sensor will be disconnected. But actually I'll also look to release these two clips here so I can lift the whole section out nice and easy without having to take apart all of these different loosen all these different Jubilee clips. And I'll also disconnect this breather hose here because it's quite tight where it joins this pipe here, the intake pipe. I'll just disconnect it here and then I'll look to plug that. Once I've removed the intake setup here, this gives us a little bit more space, but actually to get down and look at the supercharger pulley, which is just tucked in there, I will need to look to create some space by just manoeuvring this coolant expansion header tank out of the way. And what I'll look to do is I'll look to disconnect these two vent pipes. One's for the standard setup, one's for the supercharger setup. I think that's the supercharger one. We'll disconnect them, we'll plug them, and then I'll release this small securing bolt down here. And then hopefully what I should be able to do is then just lift it up slightly and pivot it round so that I have more space to work and look at the supercharger pulley there. And then once we've released the supercharger belt, I'll look to do a similar activity with the auxiliary belt tensioner. All the belts have been removed, and then we should start to look at releasing the supercharger pulley. So once the supercharger pulley has been carefully removed, and I'll go through in more detail how we do that when we get to it, I'll then look to prepare the replacement pulley, and that involves heating and offering it up onto the supercharger pulley mount, and then cooling that down rapidly with some water, and then fitting in the new belts, and then putting everything else back together. Next, the mass airflow sensor connector has now come off. Now I'm going to squeeze this. There you go. And what I'll look to do is I'll block that. Just a plastic block. There we go. Just to stop anything getting inside the top. I'll just see about removing this clip. So undo this. A simple little Jubilee clip. There we go. There we go. And to avoid any coolant loss, I'll see if I can look to plug that. Again, just using a plastic bung, push that in nice and firm. There we go. And I'm also going to do the same on the header tank with a smaller bung. Try this red one. Yeah, that's a better fit. There we go. Just gently pulling. I don't really want to break the plastic tubes. There we go. That's got it. Let's just there we go. There we go. That just stops any coolant, excessive coolant escaping. So I've just got an 8mm socket, and I'm just going to release this bolt that's securing the coolant tank. Just release this hose from this clip, so gives a bit more space. Now it's just about seeing whether I can get away with pivoting the tank. It feels quite tight still. Let's have a look down here. Okay, so I've just taken off the plastic trim that just goes along here. Just a few plastic screws and poppers that just do that, hold that in place. That's easily removed, so I've not bothered capturing that. Then what I've been able to do is literally just pivot the coolant expansion tank just round. Now I've got a bit more room, and I'm just using a bungee cable to hold that in place. So what I've got now is a 1/2 inch drive breaker with an extension, and let's see if I can try and get a decent angle. Not sure if I can. But right down there, it's lighting up. You may be able to see I've got the 1/2 inch drive into the Supercharger pulley tensioner, and what I'm going to do is literally just go and pull that clockwise to release the tension on the belt, and then I should be able to remove the belt from the top Supercharger pulley just here. Okay, that's the maximum. Let's see what we can do. See if that's going to come off. Don't mind telling it, that's tight, but it's done. Right. So the Supercharger belt is off. I've ended up cutting it just to show how bad some of these cracks were. So one of the first things I'm checking is just to see how much play there is by moving the Supercharger pulley from side to side. If it's like sort of 5 or 10 millimeters worth more of play, then it probably means the Supercharger needs to go in for a bit of a rebuild. As it happens, just gently wiggling that and oscillating that from side to side, I'd say is about 2mm. There's no clanking or knocking noises, so I think that's a good state of health. So I'm happy to proceed with starting to prepare to remove this Supercharger pulley. So this is a ribbed pulley. You can see the fitment there where it grasps on hold of the ribbed part of the pulley, plus the stopper here for the edge of the pulley. It's quite a heavy duty one. This one is made by KS Tools in Germany, so it's KS Tools part number 150.3170. So we've got our puller here, successfully engaged with the Supercharger pulley. Got his extension bar, 250 extension bar here, and an 18mm spanner. And I'm just making sure I can get purchase on that, like so. Okay, so the pulley's off. It wasn't too bad. It did require a fair amount of force to remove using the pulley puller, but the ribbed pulley puller did its job really well. Only thing I had to be a little bit careful is with the plastics around here. So in the end, I just got it to the point where there was a little bit of movement, removed the pulley puller, and then just gently knocked it off, and it came clear without any major resistance. So looking at the pulley, the end looks smooth, and the surrounding area looks like it's been well finished as well. There's no burrs. I can't see any excessive resistance around that, so I think that should be good to take the new one. So let's go get the new pulley. So here's the old and new Supercharger pulley side by side. The new one is the shiny one. Flip them over. Again, you can see, hopefully coming out reasonably well on camera, there is a subtle size difference there. So the next step is to think about heating this up with a little blowtorch. Get it nice and hot, and then we should be able to place it onto the hub over here, and then immediately we'll be able to cool it down and let that set. So what I've been able to do in the meantime, whilst the Supercharger pulley off, I've actually been able to thread in the new Supercharger belt. No. 10. 12. 13. 14. 15. 16. 17. 18. 19. Yep, that seems to have gripped quite nicely. Okay, so what I'll do now is, this is on just fine, not catching on anything, which is really good news. I wasn't expecting it to, because the snout was absolutely fine. I checked it previously. So what I'll do now is I'll look to connect up the Supercharger tensioner and just give that a good tug with my breaker bar, and then I should be able to slip the new Gates Supercharger belt onto this new pulley. Supercharger belt is now on. It's very tricky to get on, especially with this pipe in the way, so you really have to get the maximum extent of the Supercharger tensioner movement to try and get it. I'm quite happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is literally start the reverse of what we did earlier. So I'll start with putting back the expansion tank, and then start looking at connecting up the pipes. I have lost a bit of coolant because it's been leaking a little bit because I've twisted the joint at the bottom. So I'll get this aligned, and then I'll look to do the plumbing for the coolant vent pipes. So the coolant tank is now back in place. I lightly tightened that to roughly 3 Newton meters of force. That's finger tight. That's all fine. You can see down here that the tank is all aligned. And this had a leak previously, so what I've actually done is I've raided my Jubilee clip collection and put a brand new clip on there and kept this in place as well. And this had one, I've just changed the order, so this is on the outer side here and that's on there as well, so that's all nice and secure. And what I've done as well, I've just topped up this just to the min level because we lost some coolant when we was manoeuvring the tank, so a leaky joint, and I literally just had some pink antifreeze. Let's have a look, see what type it is. So this is the recommended Febi Bilstein. This is used for Mercedes and also, I'm told, for Jaguar as well. Right, so I've just put the trim back on, quite straightforward. The intake pipe, the Caldoofy pipe, is now back in place and all of the clips are nice and tight. Airbox is all in place, so the last remaining thing to do is to connect the breather hose and then put the plastic cover on top. Right, everything is in place, so the last thing to do is literally just start it up and make sure we don't have any horrible screeches from the new Supercharger belt, any horrible leaks or anything like that. So I will literally just start her up and let her come up to temperature, and whilst she's doing that I will check around for any leaks. Well, so far so good. I'll just let her get up to temperature, make sure she's okay. No squeaks from the pulley, which is good news. Finished testing or static testing the car. No leaks so far on the coolant. The new belt, new Supercharger belt, seems to be doing just fine, as does the new 6% 1.5 psi pulley. Ultimately, the next test to do will be to take it for a test drive. Good morning everybody, welcome back. So this is the day after I've installed the 6% 1.5 psi Supercharger pulley on the S-Type R, and I'm just in the middle of doing a test drive to make sure all is well. I checked the coolant this morning before setting out. It had gone down a little bit, but that could have been due to some air in the system, because I did disturb some of the pipes quite a bit yesterday during the installation. But still checking for leaks, couldn't see anything underneath the car or any obvious leaks, so all looking good so far. I've topped up just a little bit, and obviously I'll be checking this after the test drive, along with checking for any error codes via the JDS IDD diagnostic system. So there we are, but this is really about just doing a bit of a test drive and see how we get on and whether we notice any performance difference. So here goes, just making sure it's safe. Here we go, coming out, and yeah, I think that's quite a performance difference, if I'm being honest. Yeah, the wheel spin was more noticeable, as was the acceleration. That really has brightened up the car quite considerably. So in terms of actual numbers, well, we didn't dyno the car before I did the modification, and I'm certainly not going to have any, I don't have any intention of dynoing the car now, so it's really theoretical figures. But the Caldoofy intake pipe, we know adds anything between 10 and 15 brake horsepower. The Supercharger pulley modification, that can add between 20 and 25 brake horsepower, though at peak power, right up in the rev range, that may be reduced to around 15 brake horsepower due to the inefficiencies of the Eaton 112 Supercharger. So this car originally started out at around 390 brake horsepower from factory. If we add in, say, allow maybe 10 brake horsepower for the Caldoofy pipe, that takes it to 400 at the crank, 400 brake horsepower at the crank. If we then add in the performance pulley, which I've just done now, if we add in the performance pulley, then conservatively that's another 15 brake horsepower. So that really takes it to around 415 brake horsepower minus any age-related losses or anything like that. Now we know there are further parasitic losses with the drivetrain and other dynoed S-types. This has really come out at around 10% of total brake horsepower available at the crank. So if you do the math, 415, well, 10% of 415 is 41.5, call it 42. That would take us down to around 373 brake horsepower at the wheels. That's obviously very, very, very precise. We can round that down to 370. It's a job to know because we don't have any dynos or anything like that to provide hard evidence. So 370 at the wheels potentially, which is quite respectable, to be honest, for a car of this age. So I'm just going to carry on enjoying the S-Type, and we'll catch up later on for closing thoughts around how the performance is really making a difference on this car. Well, I think it's official. I think my car is actually bipolar. At the moment, I'm literally just bootling along at 50 miles an hour at 1,300 RPM. Very relaxed, no issues at all. Very, very quiet, refined, no rattles. Yet, as we've seen, just plunged that right pedal down, and all of a sudden, this car is an animal. I'm really, I guess it's surpassed expectations. The combination of the Caldoofy intake pipe and the 6% pulley change, I really wasn't expecting such a difference. Yeah, sure, I expected performance to be a little better, but the intensity, I mean, that's quite subjective, right? But the intensity of the performance, it really, really does push you back in the seat now. So yeah, I'm very pleased, and I think bang for buck, that's possibly one of the best performance enhancements I've seen. So yeah, if your car is healthy, you've remediated any issues with fuel trims, your mass airflow is in tip-top condition, then yeah, I can only recommend getting the Caldoofy intake pipe, and also having the 6% pulley change, the Supercharger pulley. So it doesn't seem like much, but honestly, I think that Supercharger must be pushing an extra 20-25 brake horsepower through the mid-range. It really, really does seem to make a huge difference. Goodness only knows what the 10% pulley is like. I think that would probably give another 20% on top, but I'm happy. I think this is the ideal setup for this S-Type. It now means it's more than comparable to the later AJ34S in terms of performance figures, and it's just that, not a little bit, but quite a bit more responsive and intense under full throttle compared to what it was previously. So I'm really, really pleased. So hopefully now I'm going to finish off the drive, get some more fuel, and I think that'll be it. Well, thanks ever so much for watching. Appreciate it's probably a bit of a long video, but some significant changes Wanted to bring you along to share what I've done, document what I've done, and yeah, see you for the next one. Thanks a lot.